Hey everybody, welcome back to the show for episode 140. This is a special one. This is my interview with Shaun Preston, the director of Camp Small. Now, if you don't know, or you missed an episode a couple of months ago, Camp Small is, well, essentially it's a wood recycling plant here in Baltimore, Maryland. And they recently made the news, unfortunately, because of a terrible fire. And when you know the YouTube ad is, YouTube is playing an ad in the background, but yeah, there was this terrible fire that decimated their entire stock. And I had a chance to interview Shaun, I want to say about 2 weeks before this happened. So it's an interesting kind of shot back in time as I had this conversation with Shaun and some of their plans for the future. Obviously, all of that has changed and all of their stock burnt to the ground. But I was able to touch base with Shaun. I emailed him the day after and said, hey, what's the story? And none of their equipment was damaged. Their buildings were all in good shape. And essentially, it was just a matter of the fire department coming in and declaring everything safe, cleaning out some of the debris and ash and things like that, and starting over. And just a kind of a quick email conversation, he seemed very optimistic. Well, as of Boxing Day, December 26th, their sawmill was back up and running, and they sawed their first log on a special order. Now, I do believe that Camp Small is officially still closed to the public, but I think this actually could be a really, silver lining, if you will. A lot of what Shaun inherited when he took over Camp Small was just a huge dumping ground of logs. He since organized it and turned it into this sawmill and this recycling center. But prior to that, it was just huge stacks of logs, and he was kind of slowly working his way through it. So as sad as it was to see it all burn down, they're now grading the site, and it's going to be a much better site to store logs as well as to store lumber. And I think in the future, it's going to be fantastic for the future of Camp Small. Not to mention the amazing amount of publicity, and I guess they say there's no press is bad press. This was terrible. This fire was awful, but it shone a light on Camp Small. So this is a great opportunity to pick the brain of somebody that has figured it out and figured out how to make urban wood management into an urban sawmill with the partnership of the local city. And Baltimore, honestly, it leads the way amongst all the other cities on how to handle this wood recycling program. It's unfortunate that this fire happened, but I think it's going to be a really great, forgive the rebirth from the ashes to allow this to proceed forward. So I hope you will enjoy my conversation with Shaun Preston, director of Camp Small here in Baltimore. Shaun Preston is here from Camp Small here in my neck of the woods in Baltimore. Welcome to the show, Shaun.
Thanks. Nice to be here with you.
This is a real pleasure because I've lived in Baltimore, in the Baltimore area for more than 20 years now, and I was totally unaware of what the city of Baltimore is doing. In fact, one of my listeners wrote in and said, you're having all these conversations about circular economy and repurposing wood waste and urban silviculture. He's like, why haven't you talked to the city of Baltimore? And I was like, I'd like to. I need to find someone. And he sent me several articles, and I was shocked. I was embarrassed. Like the progressive nature of what the city of Baltimore is doing. It's head and shoulders above any other city in the country, if not the world. I don't actually know that stat. But it's really impressive. So Camp Small, you work for the city. You are a city employee, correct? So Camp Small is, I'll let you describe it. You're the director of Camp Small. What is Camp Small?
So Camp Small, we are part of Recreation and Parks and the Division of Forestry. It is a 4.5 acre site that's been the dumping site for the city's street trees, open park trees that come down for many decades, maybe as much as 100 years. It hasn't always been managed by Recreation and Parks. There's been moments where it was managed by DPW, but it's been in Recreation and Parks hands for the last 30 or 40 years. It was about eight or 9 years ago that the city started this program to try to capture some of the value that had been, that was being lost. from the materials that were just coming into the site and sitting there and decomposing. Um, and the city was paying a contractor every few years or so to remove a portion or all of the materials that had been collected at the site, which could be them removing 5,000 tons to clear up, or a whole yard filled, which could be as much as 40,000 tons, 50,000 tons of material. Uh, so our program started, and we in that attempt to capture value.
That's fantastic. So all of the wood flowing into your yard is coming from where exactly?
Yeah, it's all coming from 99% of it is coming from recreation and parks, managed properties,
Mm-hmm.
and so those are our street trees and our open park spaces. If a tree falls in parkland in the woods, it stays there. Even if it is that 40-inch walnut DBH, 40-inch DBH walnut, we're leaving it in the forest because it's a habitat and it's a natural process of decomposition. It's good for the soil and good for the trees around it and good for the wildlife living there. So we only take in the street trees and the open park space.
And
Here's
that's kind of where I was going. That is, I'm curious why. Like, why are these trees coming down? Why are they ending up in your yard?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of reasons, but
Yeah, and I haven't done I don't know if there is good records on historical intake from our street trees, to see if there's sort of like an influx. I think that would be hard to find, but
hmm.
I feel like it's safe to say though that we have seen a pretty dramatic influx in materials that come into the yard. I came in here and started working here in 2016 to get the program going. We had some major storms in Baltimore City, in like 2012, 2013. But, you know, for my first five years here, it seemed pretty steady that we were receiving around 7 or 8,000 tons of material annually. We have seen some influxes from storms that have come in, and it can be a dramatic increase when those storms come through, because typically those trees are only coming down when they're dead, decayed, when they pose a threat, to a
Right.
danger to citizens or habitats or dwellings. And then we'll see removals because of insects, emerald ash borer. And we also, as our programs developed, we've started working closer with our utilities, so Department of Public Works doing stream restoration projects, or
Okay.
Baltimore Gas and Electric doing electrical clearings for gas lines or substations. And in those events, what hadn't been done previously that we do now is, we go through and we identify what of those materials we can capture higher value out of, and then we work with those entities to secure those logs so that we can repurpose them into the highest value possible for those.
Excellent. So instead of getting a bunch of bucked, rounds 36 inches long, you're getting a log, in other words.
Right, and previously, we weren't even accepting anything from those operations. It was left to those organizations to deal with that
Hmm.
material as they saw fit, and it wasn't coming to our yard. But now that we have this program in place, we can have them bring in that stuff because it is city-owned material. So we can have it brought in and see that it's utilized to the highest value, because chances are, if whatever company they were utilizing to do that work, 9 out of 10 times, even if it's a really healthy, beautiful tree that could turn into lumber, it's going to end up into mulch because that's just easier process and part of the operation.
It's a lot lighter to move, easier to load into a truck in mulch form. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. I'm just curious. So, you're getting city trees, and these are, you said something earlier about, this is city property. I mean, if somebody, let me just put it this way, more closer to your neighborhood. Let's not get into the legalese side of things. You are the intake yard for these trees. So if a private citizen contracts to, XYZ tree company to come take the tree down, does that tree automatically end up in your yard? Like,
A city tree, they're
yeah.
contacting XYZ to take down a city tree. So going back to like what you were saying, like you know, the city does give permission
Mm-hmm.
for residents to to do work on city trees, but it's obviously it's after, like, the typical situation would be, you know there's a city tree in front of your house. You're concerned about it. You call 311. 311, forwards that over to Department of Rec and Parks or Urban Forestry. We send an urban forester out. They inspect the tree. If they see that tree needs work done, you know, it could be anywhere from 3 weeks to 16 weeks before somebody's out there to do that work on that tree. You could approach forestry and say, "Hey, I'd like it removed sooner. I'm willing to pay for the service to get it done," and they can release a permit for you to do that work. But it's only ever done when it's first identified that there is a cause for that tree to need removal or pruning or something. But yes, all of that material comes to my yard. So the arborist goes out. If it's a tree removal, they're gonna limb it all up and run it through their chipper on site. Then they're gonna buck the log up. The chips are gonna come to Camp Small, and the logs are gonna come to Camp Small.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yep.
Um, and it's interesting because I've had, you are the first to officially be on the show from a city, by the way. I've got several
Oh,
feelers out all over the country, and I've had multiple conversations. And what you guys have, it's not unique, but it's rare. In other words, you're not really having to go out and say, "Hey guys, bring me your logs," or you're not having to go out and evangelize. Like, you are a city department, and the permits, and part of doing business in the city as a tree company means that here's where we take the logs because it's city property. That is actually quite rare. I've
very
talked to folks on the West Coast, talked to folks in the Midwest, Northeast, Southeast. I can think of two other examples, probably out of 30, that say, "Oh yeah, everything just comes here." Everyone else is like, "Oh no, we're constantly going out to, like, we're evangelizing. We're going out to fairs. We're going to schools. We're spreading the word that, like, when you have a tree taken down, call the city, and hey, we'll come pick it up sometimes. Like, we'll save you money." But it's not predetermined, if you will, that it's going to end up in that intake yard. Um,
right.
and from the tree removal guys, call them foresters, if you will, not really. Well, yeah, sure. Arborists, that's the word I'm looking for. Those guys are, they love this idea because they can actually make decisions on the actual value of the tree, and it gives them a little bit more options. Many of them have gone out and bought, rubber tire band mills and things like that in order to add services because they recognize there is a place for this to go. So many of these guys started by buying band mills, and they would have some sort of log yard themselves, where they keep their trucks and things, and they would pile up some logs over there. And very quickly it got out of control to the point where they were just having to, mulch them or throw them out or whatever. So
Right.
I guess this is my way of saying, kudos to the city of Baltimore for putting this in place, because just it all just kind of lands there. That's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it is really unique. When I talk to other cities, I'm often approached by other cities that are trying to wrap their head around starting a program like this. How to capture the value, and the challenges, the main two challenges that other cities face, I did not have to deal with, and that's I should say three challenges. One, having a yard already identified that's centrally located that can house all that material. Um, Two, um, having it uh, Baltimore City can charge maximum possible value for their surplus material. That's something that was written in maybe 100 years ago. I believe it started maybe with cobblestones being dug up on the streets, and then realizing there was value in those cobblestones, and then them creating a surplus department in their purchasing, and being able to sell and distribute that material. So we were able to piggyback on that, and that's very rare and uncommon. And then a third is that Baltimore City has in-house tree crews, and then we have contracted tree crews, and they all bring that material here, meaning that the contracted crews, are required to bring all of the debris to Camp Small.
Mm-hmm.
So other cities, they don't have a yard, they don't have ability to sell their goods, and that takes effort to introduce that,
Yeah.
and establish that, um, and that's a challenge. And then often they have contractors that do all of their tree care work, and that's it. They contract out the service. The company does good work, and they dispose of that material however they see fit. So, so the cities are now trying to approach those contractors to find out how they can identify the valuable logs, how they can retain those valuable logs, who they can work with in their areas to utilize that material, and distribute it. And often they're working in very small sites, so they're not able to just take all of it like we
Mm.
can here at Camp Small. They need to, and it becomes a really challenging chain of operation. So I don't envy that, but I do see it as a challenge, and we're lucky that we didn't have those. And so Camp Small's been very successful and is very unique, but it certainly was built on a foundation that was already there, and led to the success.
It's interesting. Your second point there about being able to charge maximum value, like this was written into the city bylaws. It's funny that you bring up cobbles. Our background here is actually wooden Nicholson pavers from Pittsburgh. It's
Oh,
kind of a
right. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
different kind of cobble, but yeah, that's the background that's behind us right now. Um, so I guess because it's a government, right? It's not a for-profit entity. You can't just charge. That's the issue. I hadn't even thought about that.
Right.
So even though you may have this material, so for instance, Montgomery County, south of us,
Yeah.
has a lumber sale. Do they? I guess they have the same ability, or do they have to like make it super cheap so that they don't make a profit? How does?
I don't know. They're good friends of ours. We've had nice tour facility dates, and and checked each other's operations out and try to support each other. Um, they've got a really good crew down there. They've got a really nice setup, but their big challenge is not being able to sell their materials. So,
Huh.
uh,
Interesting.
so I think that they have, since last I talked, in the last couple of years, they've done the sales, the annual sale. So I think that they figured out something,
Right.
um, that
Well,
that
I
that
wonder.
works.
Like, I know you guys have had dealings with Cambium Carbon. I've had the whole crew from Cambium Carbon on the show in the past,
Oh,
um,
cool.
and they're obviously trying to connect and create a marketplace in some instances. I suppose just breaking even, the more if you invest in crews and things like that, you invest in facilities in order to be able to transform the logs into certain things, and then selling them to whomever, private residents, architects, things like that, could essentially go into a fund that could be reinvested in replanting trees, could be reinvested in additional equipment. Am I wrong there, or
No,
does
that
the math not
no,
work out?
no, that's exactly how we function.
Okay.
Our program started with our city has a an innovation loan through the mayor's office. So it awards funds to programs within city agencies developing, a new initiative that can show a return on investment. And so that's how our program started. It hired me. It gave me some funds for renting equipment. I screened through a bunch of like 20-year-old piles of mixed debris and made a woody compost. Sold that compost. Our utility company, our electric utility company, was building a substation just adjacent to our property here. So I identified a bunch of walnuts and poplars and ashes that were coming down out of that. Instead of having them, most likely chipped up, we had those turned into lumber, and we put that into a recreation center that had already spec'd, $100,000 for that material to go into the center, and we were able to instead replace that with
Wow.
um, our own tongue and groove wall cladding that came from our own trees, and we worked with the local sawmill, and we saved the department $75,000 on that material. And so between those two things, we paid back a 5-year loan within a year. It set us up for success, so we were able to continue tapping into that innovation fund when we needed more capital for our growth. But what Camp Small's model is that our revenue supports the growth of the program, which supports job creation, and it supports training Baltimore citizens with valuable skills such as like forestry skills. Of course, like urban forestry is a growing field, so forestry skills, woodworking, and heavy equipment operation. And then we can feed all three of those are growing industries. So that's how our model is based. The money stays within the division of forestry. It supports tree planting, it supports tree maintenance, and it supports the growth of Camp Small.
I guess
So
I'm still, forgive me, I'm a woodworker and a musician, so I don't count real high, and I guess I'm trying to understand how that's different in other cities, because you're still, is it just that you can charge a market rate for these things in order to, or otherwise you just can't make a return? What's the difference when you say other cities can't charge a maximum value? What's their situation like then? I mean,
I don't know.
isn't that how government works, right? Like they bring in money via income from taxes and things like that, and they fund their programs and such. So in your case, you're bringing in money not from tax revenue, you're bringing in from the sale of goods and, I guess, services in some respect. Maybe that's the issue.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
I mean, I have the same question. I don't really understand where that bottleneck is.
Right. Because it seems kind
Because
of obvious, right? Your
yeah,
case
yeah,
study you
yeah,
just mentioned, let's use our
right.
own material, let's make T&G out of it. And I work for a local lumberyard. I don't like to hear that you didn't need my T&G, but we'll live. That's a very compelling argument, and I just can't understand why more cities can't wrap their head around that. What's holding them back more than anything? Huh.
It's a really good question. There are probably some good answers to it, some obvious answers, some frustrating answers, I'm sure. Um, uh, you know, maybe that's a question that our friends in Montgomery County could answer, since
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just sort of dealing with that.
we
But
could do that. Well,
yeah,
let,
but
let's not get caught up in policy, because neither one of us really wants to talk about that anyway. So let's talk about what you guys actually do there. We know where all the wood's coming from, and it's you're getting everything from mulch to logs, trimmings, things like that. What do you do with it? What do you make?
yeah. So going back to when I started, it was just I was here at this yard doing sorting. I just had one piece of machinery. I had a track loader, and I was trying to sort out the valuable materials and distribute them. And I had some minor success. The big success that came out of that was learning what I needed.
Hmm.
Um, I guess more specifically, learning what what my potential customers and what the markets out there needed,
Okay.
um, from me, um, in order to, you know, produce a product that I could then distribute. So, there wasn't hardly anybody out there that could take my logs and process them.
Hmm.
We had trouble with, working with, larger outfits, because urban wood it's not, typical lumber grade timber,
Not
at all.
FAS. Yeah.
Right. So, um, so we had challenges there. So we were looking at, really small outfits running bandsaw mills, or hobbyists, or, somebody that was willing to take this stuff to another sawmill and have it processed there. Um, and that first year, I certainly realized that, I was helping to understand, or I was getting an understanding of things, and I was helping the situation out a little bit, but in order to really, have an impact, I would need to set up a sawmill and kiln dry operation, and increase staff. So, I got a small grant that bought us a kiln and a portable bandsaw mill. We added one more individual, my coworker, Nick Oster, to our staff, who has a, education background, teaching, woodworking, and has a historical restoration and green building background. So, so then we started building out our wood shop, um, and fast forward, several years. We work with city schools. We do, outdoor classrooms. We do play areas. We work with community groups to help them establish community gardens by building raised beds, providing wood chips, distributing wood chips throughout the city. We work with all kinds of hobbyists to identify what their needs are. So we, produce blanks for turners. We produce firewood. And then we do kiln dried lumber and green lumber. We run a dehumidification kiln, so we focus on, like, 3,000 board foot loads of ash and maple, and we do those at like 8 quarter, 9 quarter, 6 quarter stock.
Is that your kiln capacity? 3,000 board feet.
Yeah, we just received yesterday, a vacuum kiln. So
Nice.
it's here in my driveway, and I got to figure out a way to get it into our building, which is going to be fun. A
Nice.
lot heavier than I thought it would be.
Yeah. What?
But
Just out of curiosity, what is it? Is it an eye dry? What kind of
yeah,
vacuum?
it's iDry
Okay.
standard.
Nice.
We're really excited to get it. So we'll be able to increase capacity.
I think I
And
saw on your website the stuff that you're sawing. You're pretty much just through sawing everything. So you just have a slab inventory. You're not ripping and creating dimensional boards. Correct?
we do that for custom orders.
Oh,
So,
okay. Okay.
we provide so many services. Like, we try not to ever say no to anything that comes our way.
All right.
And, like, and I think that, well, one, that's always important for a business starting out, but also we see ourselves first and foremost as a public service. That's what our program is all about. It's like, because we're part of the city government and a public entity, a customer can walk into our facility, not know, how to get to from A to B, how to turn our rough sawn kiln dried lumber into the table that they've always wanted. And we can take the time. We can spend time with them on figuring out what wood that we have is best suited for their vision. Who they can work with outside of us. We can provide services to plane the wood and join the wood, and dimensionalize it for them. And then we can put them into contact with several makers in the area that can then fabricate the table for them. And if it's like putting up a shelf, we can help them see that vision, show them examples in our office of things that they can do with that material. But but we
Hmm.
take the time.
That's cool. That's cool.
And we love that about our jobs and about our program, because it's a lot of fun for us to be able to do that, and we get a lot of value out of that.
Yeah. So your um, facility now. Let's talk equipment. You've got a band mill, obviously. Still just one, or have you added
Yeah,
to
we still
that?
have one. We run a Wood-Mizer LT35.
Okay.
We
Nice.
run a Nile dehumidification kiln, and now we've got the iDry standard that's coming, or that's here but needs to get into the building and hooked up. We run a really nice split fire firewood splitter. It's
Nice.
their Beast edition. That's, I don't know. It's like splits. I mean, we've like thrown like 36-inch diameter white oaks on that thing, and it's busted them up. That thing is a
Hmm.
beast. I think it's like 42 tons or something. But
Nice.
so we also have we have some John Deere equipment. We have a John Deere track loader 655. We have a John Deere 135 excavator with a 360 rotational grapple on it,
Okay.
and we run a John Deere skid steer with a grapple attachment and forklift attachment and bucket attachment. So um,
All right.
that we're we short we've I feel like we've struck gold with all the equipment. We're nerds about
Right.
it. It's not we didn't just fall into it. We really geek out on research and figuring out what's best for the operation. But yeah, all of our equipment is fantastic. We have a wood shop that we have a saw stop, and we've got you know all the typical things. We've got some really nice old Delta equipment. We've got some nice newer stuff, and uh, and again, that is something that that me and my coworker Nick have we've been doing woodworking all our lives. So it's
Right.
also something we geek out on, and
So, so as the resident hand tool nerd, any hand planes or hand saws? Come on. Anything?
yeah, and that's like we're building that out extensively at the moment, and trying to get more. That is um, my woodworking experience is pretty simple. Nick's is extensive, so he's the one that you would want to talk to about all of that stuff. He's
Right
the
on.
one that you'd have fun talking to.
You can count on that.
So yeah, after we do this, you got to come visit and hang out.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we're actually in my wood shop right now, which it's
I
the
can
light
tell.
is down low, but yeah, I just did a live stream in here last night for I have a hand tool school is what it's called, just teaching hand stuff, and I've got
Oh,
several
cool.
saws laying everywhere right now and hand planes all over the place. So yeah, I love it. I love it. And certainly Nick as a restorationist, and probably there's not a lot of restoration you can do without a hand plane or at least a block plane in your hand. So that's good stuff.
Yeah, they're here. He brought them here,
Nice.
and we've since acquired more.
I think it's amazing that you've got that education component in there as well. Not just like to the average person that comes in and here I want to build a shelf, but also reaching out to the schools and such. Do you extend beyond the city, like out into the county, when it comes to school outreach, or do you have it?
Yeah, we do. We have, we offer more services to city than we do for county.
I would think
For
so. Yeah.
example, we will offer delivery just to public projects within the city. We don't offer that to public projects outside of the city. Um, we do offer discounted pricing, and that extends beyond the city for public use. So if it's a public project of any kind, we have discounted pricing. Basically, we omit the raw material costs, and so we only charge for labor. But yeah, we work in and out of the city for sure. Our doors are
That's
open to
cool.
everyone.
That's
And something that's really really fun about our operation is you can come in and you can be looking for a cherry, and we can show you some of the kiln dried cherry that we have in stock. But we can also like take you over and show you the cherry logs that we have. We separate everything by species around the building.
Hmm.
So all the timber logs are sorted by species. So we can take you to the pile of cherry, and you could identify which one you like the most, and you can say, you know, can you cut me, 3 slabs out of this that are 8 quarter, and then can you quarter saw all the material around the pith, and then can you do the rest of it in
Wow.
like 6 quarter, and we'll do all of that service for you and bundle it up, and then you pick up the log to air dry on your premises. You can even buy the stickers from us and keep it stickered in transportation if you wanted to. So we do. You can come in and you can just pick the log, and we'll load the log up onto your trailer, and away you go, and you can do it all yourself. So
I
it's
hadn't even thought about that. I was thinking like,
yeah.
you sell logs, and I can think of, a lot of reasons that I'd want a log to build a chair and, rive it and all that stuff myself. And then I was thinking, okay, people may be using it for, landscaping and, playgrounds and things like that. It didn't even occurred to me like on demand sawing, essentially. And maybe that's not the right word for it, but custom sawing would be the word. So I can go and, pick my log and have you saw me, and I get the flitch and be happy for a decade to come, with cherry. That's really cool. That's amazing. I
Yeah.
hadn't even thought about that. Why haven't I been there?
Well, that's all about the change.
It's probably because at my day job I have 7 million board feet just outside my office window. That's probably something to do with it. But
Good reason.
yeah, but one of the things that, and what I want to get into now is what kind of species are you seeing? Because I guarantee you're seeing stuff that I'm not getting commercially.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a fun part. Of all of those species, like the one that jazzes me the most is the Japanese Zelkova. That's a widely planted
Where is
street
it?
tree. What do you got? A piece of it sitting around? What do you?
I,
What do you?
I well,
What do you
I just built an urn out of it, and
whoa!
really figured Zelkova. Unfortunately, the urn is now has ashes in it and it's somewhere else. But I had sawn up some veneer, and somewhere it's in my shop under something. But yeah, it's a really great wood, really cool wood.
Yeah. I mean, so did you turn it?
No, 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 no. It was all in plank board form. Built
Yeah.
it into a box, and then I had uh, a commercial burl veneer, Zelkova burl that I bought and put over a couple of faces of it. Yeah, yeah. It's,
Yeah.
it's
It
actually
is.
a wood that goes way back to like Japanese tansu, and
Yeah.
that's what I was building. The urn was a tansu, so yeah, it's a cool wood.
Yeah. It is a really cool wood that people don't realize that about. Like nobody knows that about Japanese oak. Nobody knows that. And it's incredibly rot resistant. They use it in Japan to build shipping piers. So they grow it in forest stands, and it grows straight and tall.
Hmm.
And here on our streets, it was brought over to replace the elms after elm disease. It's got a huge canopy and it's super hardy, and it's so much so that we don't see very much of it. It doesn't come in very
Right.
often. But when it does, the butt log's about 4 to 6 feet, and then it branches out into like as many as a dozen limbs coming off of that trunk at 5 feet. So unfortunately, because of that, like we can't cut 9 foot timber out of that. And so a lot of it we utilize for playgrounds and things like that, because it's such a rot resistant wood. But we do mill it on occasion. We have customers come in, and I'll show them a log that comes, and let them know that it's straight grain and really dense and rot resistant, and we'll
Yeah,
saw it up for them.
it's really fun to
And it's
work
got
with
a
too.
beautiful color.
Hmm.
Smells. It's got a funky smell when you cut it, though.
Yeah, true.
It
Um,
was.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I know that Zelkova has been planted kind of everywhere, and it's, like you said, to replace the elms. Actually, isn't Zelkova in the Ulmus genus? I think it is.
Yes,
Uh,
it is.
cool. So, what else are we seeing coming out of Baltimore?
Well, we still see lots of ash,
Okay.
and we still have a lot out there to take down, and maples are, the red maple is the number one planted tree in Baltimore City, so we do see a lot of
Two of
maple.
them out my window.
So we see lots of red maple, sugar maples, silver maples, a lot of like softwood, like a lot of lindens,
Okay.
small, big leaf, and then a lot of oaks, lots of reds, lots of whites, and we have a few different varieties of white oak that comes. We a lot of elm, a lot of red elms, a lot of American elms. Um,
I was actually surprised by that. You hear so much about Dutch elm, and I wasn't seeing a lot of them, but I've heard from many people all over the country. I did an episode on Dutch elm, and there's still quite a few large ones out there. I mean, I guess it's when you compare to what we used to have, it's still very few. But you always had this impression that it was just gone.
right.
But no, it's still out there, and I've seen some variants that apparently are resistant. But then there's
Mhm.
also instances where you've got 2 and 3 year old trees, and then they get hit by Dutch elm. When they get to like 3 or 4, and that's when I guess they end up in your yard.
Yeah, we see a lot of London plane.
Oh,
Um,
okay, really interesting. Okay.
and then the species that we utilize the most of is ash, white oak, the maples, um, and any of the rot resistant species. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the Zelkova, that's the locust, the honey locust, the black locust. That's the mulberry, um, and um, and I'm forgetting one, but we utilize a lot of the rot resistant stuff because of all the outdoor furniture that we make, as well as like the play spaces that we do. The species that we get a lot of that we sort of don't have a market for, probably the number one is the red oak, but we're excited to be currently working with cambium carbon. They're doing the thermal modification to red oak, and hopefully that's a growing thing for us, and we can continue to feed red oaks to cambium carbon for thermal modification. We're working
One of
with
those in my
them.
yard.
Oh yeah,
I've
cool.
got a
Yeah,
thermal red
it's
oak right over there. Yeah.
beautiful. It's such an awesome thing.
Mm-hmm.
Great product. A whole lot of it is going into the city's downtown rash field that
Hmm.
sits around the Inner Harbor. They're entering phase two of that, and it's a very large uh, park revitalization that they're doing, and it's going to include a whole lot of thermally modified wood on all the decking and for some benches and cladding and stuff. So the
That's
red
great.
oak for that thermal modification came from Camp Small and is being processed by Cambium Carbon.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a tough species, and I'm glad to see. Well, I mean, certainly, ash. We know what's going on with the ash borer there, and thermal ash has kind of been the mainstay in that market. Red oak is starting to fill some of those gaps, but it's a tough wood to sell. Everybody wants white oak, and red oak has always been kind of the commodity product, and certainly you can get red oak at large, yards like where I work, where it's perfectly FAS, and you can get all heart, and you're trying to compete with that when you may not have the length and the width spec coming from forest concessions and things like that. But the problem I find actually with red oak is we should just stop kiln drying it, because it's such a wonderful wood to work with when it's air dried. Kiln drying kind of, I don't know, it does bad things to some of the color. You could say that with a lot of wood, but yeah, I don't know, maybe we just need to get more people understanding how riven red oak works. Oh my god, it's an incredible wood. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just need to come down and get some red oak logs and ribe them.
Yeah, we have people often do that for chair making and
Yeah.
things.
So we've kind of talked around all the various things you're doing, and you talked about people coming in and visiting you, but you're not just open, right? It's a can anybody just wander in, or do you need appointments? How do we engage with Camp Small?
Yeah, it's by appointment. We're
Okay.
still such a small staff, and we're so busy that and as I was explaining, we really want when people to come in through the door, we want to have the time to take with them,
Sure.
and understand what they need, and make sure that they're getting a good experience from us. So we stress that we're by appointment only. We probably still handle like 3 walk-ins a day,
Yeah.
despite despite the sign out on the road.
Right.
And um, but yeah, just an email to campsmall@baltimorecity.gov, and we're Monday through Friday 9 to 4.
Excellent. Great. And you guys, how do we find you on social? I think I had
Yeah.
campsmall.baltimore city. And you got a real good indication of kind of what you're doing. But I urge people to go check out the website. You can see, I mean, really, what I like about this whole thing is it is the what do they say? You know, we use the whole buffalo, we use the whole tree. You can get a
Right.
log, you can get firewood, you can get mulch, you can get turning blanks. Like the entire tree is used because of the fact that we talked about earlier. Everything is coming into your yard. I think that's really really cool. So, any last comments? Anything else that you think the public should know about what you guys are doing down there, or what the future
Yeah.
is? I guess.
Yeah, a couple things. One I didn't mention. We the last couple years we've been working with the Maryland Zoo, and it's just been an awesome thing. So now you walk through the Maryland Zoo, and all the birds are perching on limbs from Camp Small. You know the porcupines, sleeping in a hollowed out log from Camp Small. The otters are swimming around in a habitat of Camp Small wood, and the elephants are pushing around, 40-inch diameter, 13-foot long logs from here. And we just built out last year we built out a goat structure. The funny thing about it is that we do these nature play structures for kids, in communities. And then our friends over at the zoo asked us if we could come and build one for the kids in the goat corral because they're
Right. Yeah.
kids too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Probably the same design, right? Not a whole lot of differences, I'd imagine. Yeah. Huh.
The difference is that like the goats can fall from higher heights and be okay. So we were allowed to build it taller than we typically do.
So
Um,
basically, you're building a 1970s playground. You know, the
yeah,
stuff that I grew up on that would be so dangerous by today's standards. So yeah, nice. That's
exactly.
really cool. What a
It's very cool.
phenomenal, what a way to repurpose the wood, though. I'd never even occurred to me.
It's awesome. It's
Every
awesome.
city's
So
got a zoo.
we're doing a much bigger one now for the goats as well, and then we're gonna start working on designing and working with them to do a very large one for the chimpanzees. So
Wow.
um, yeah, it's been really just unexpected, and that's been the whole experience here. Since I started working here 9 years ago, um, it's been a slow building process, and I think that's been a key to the success here is that it's kind of allowed the program to develop to the needs of the community.
Hmm. Sure.
Um, we've been real fortunate to be able to do that, and that's just kind of coincidental. It's just kind of how it unfolded. Um,
Yeah.
but So yeah, so just wanted to mention the great relationship we have with the zoo, and folks that walk through the zoo, can notice the eagle sitting on some Camp Small limbs or whatever it is.
Right.
And the other thing is that we take in 9,000 tons of material every year through our really small little operation of reuse. we redistribute, 15-20% of that material that comes in. There is so much growth potential. We could expand our efforts. We could easily double what we create and what we distribute through increasing staff and equipment, and still just dealing with the 9,000 tons. But what we create here, we've got this central yard and operation in Baltimore City that's, as we were talking about before, very unique, and we don't currently accept anything from the private sector, and the private sector makes up another eight times more material out there of urban city wood. As we grow, we have the opportunity to start to funnel some of that through our operation too, and so there's great growth potential. And and the focus there remains the same. The focus is capturing the highest value that we can from that material that comes in, creating jobs, giving skills to folks who come through for training, and supporting tree planting and maintenance in Baltimore City.
Yeah. And kind of like when I was talking to the Cambium Carbon folks, just connecting the dots. In your earlier days, before you had a sawmill, you were reaching out to folks who had sawmills. As you continue to grow, there will be a point where it's like, well, how do we, we've got this, an additional 80,000 tons suddenly coming in. We can't handle this. We can distribute that out into other areas and just continue this reuse and this circular economy, because the infrastructure is there. And in some ways, kind of a template. You guys have built a template on how to do this. And if I may say, how to make it work. I think you've certainly shown how to make that work. So congratulations. It's really...
Thanks.
Like I said, it's really embarrassing that I didn't know you guys were down there until a couple of years ago. I've been running this podcast for 4 years now, and I've been woodworking for almost 25 years in this area. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I was really, really happy to be able to get you on the show and talk about this. And I'm definitely going to come down and pay you guys a visit.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, well, let me know when you want to come by, and if we could pick a day that we've got the mill out there and running things, and have our operation rocking and rolling.
That'd be great. Well, thank you so much, Shaun. I really appreciate your time, and I hopefully listeners will start coming your way. And if nothing else, go to their local city and say, look at this, look what they're doing. Make this happen. So that would be awesome.
Yeah. It was a pleasure being on the show with you and talking with you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. One last thing that I want to kind of throw into this before you turn away from this episode is, if you go to Camp Small's website, that's treebaltimore.org/camp-small. I'll post a link in the show notes. There is actually a button there to help donate to the recovery of Camp Small. And if the mood so strikes, click that button and throw them a couple of bucks and help them out on this road to recovery. Like I said, they are kind of sort of back open, maybe not technically, but certainly they're continuing site improvements. The sawmill is up and running, their equipment is still running, and they are able to start sawing logs. So here's to the future of Camp Small, and certainly you'll be hearing more from them in the future on this podcast. So in the meantime, keep those questions coming. If you have specific questions about Camp Small, send those to me as well. You can always get the show notes for the show at lumberupdate.com. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, go to patreon.com/lumberupdate. You can also submit your questions there if you are a Patreon supporter. And in general, send me your questions, lumberupdate@gmail.com, or hit me up on Instagram @lumberupdateshow. Look forward to your questions, and we will see you in the next episode.